Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I beg to present for second reading a bill shortly entitled Recording of Court Proceedings. Mr. President, as we would know, or we should appreciate, the official record of whatever is said or happens in a court of law, in a court, must be accurately recorded. And there are many reasons why that happens, because whatever happens in a court or during court proceedings may very well decide the fate of someone or their future, their life, and has serious implications for decision making. And that may be used to inform the interpretation or the actions of lawyers, magistrates, and invariably impact the lives of people. So it's very important that we, in the interest of democracy, fairness, and transparency, ensure that there is no room or very little room for any ambiguity or any misrepresentation of what happens in court. Well, I think we have some legal minds in this chamber, and I think we would appreciate that clients, prosecutors, and anybody who operates in a court wants to be as accurate and as fair as possible. We're a government that believes in equity and fairness, and we believe that this piece of legislation addresses an issue that can bring a bit of equity, particularly since we are a bilingual country. And Mr. President, in some cases, persons who are before the court may have difficulty with what I consider our second language, which is the official English language. We have people in this country who are more comfortable and more competent in what we call our Creole language. And they may be able to better express themselves in Creole. And you want to ensure that when they do, the information that they present or they offer is accurately recorded by whoever is doing the interpretation or whoever is entering that official record into the court. Because it is the official record that has been entered that will be retrieved, or that should be retrieved, in the event that there is an appeal or there is need for reference to be made to these records. Being from a community where Creole is widely spoken, Mr. President, I too appreciate the need for this to happen. And we do not want any injustice to be served to anyone simply because they were unable to express themselves in the official language, which is English. And I think this piece of legislation really seeks to minimize, if not eliminate, that possibility and give people, residents, citizens, and anyone before the court in our country a level of fairness and equity. And as a government that represents the interests of the people, I believe this is a very critical piece of legislation. Often there is a level of, there's a correlation that we make between the level of literacy of someone and the level of vulnerability. Most of the time, if you look at our socioeconomic information, research, census, and so on, you will find that there is a positive correlation between persons who are semi-literate or totally illiterate and their standard of living, and the access to information, and the ability to be represented or to have their views represented. And so we have to also remember those people. So it's not only people who are unable to speak the first language, but also people who may have difficulty expressing themselves using our official language. So, Mr. President, I really welcome this piece of legislation, and I hope that it finds comfort and support in this Honorable Senate to be ascended for the benefit of the people who need it most. I thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I listened very attentively to the submission made by the independent senator, who I believe has a certain level of authority on the topic of this issue. And so I was eagerly awaiting his submission. Of course, as a team who is always willing to listen and to consider good advice and good counsel. And he has made a couple of very important notes and observations that I think are welcome. I will attempt in this brief rebuttal to also speak in Creole, because there are people listening this morning who may be more comfortable with what I'm going to say in Creole, so they understand that this bill has something to do with them. But before I do so, Mr. President, I want to make reference to one of the submissions he made. He did mention training, and I agree. I think that it's one thing to pass legislation. The judiciary can do what they have to do, but it's another thing to be able to implement and make it work. And I welcome the suggestion for training. And I also want to agree with the submission he made regarding the human resource, and it's not only for interpretation. There is something, however, I think I want to, comment on, and that is the fact that someone speaks Creole doesn't necessarily make them a good interpreter. That may be so, Mr. President, but I think even if you have to train someone who is competent in Creole, the person has to be, and even if the person is a good interpreter, but once you're going to get a different language, that person must be competent not only in interpretation, but in the language. Because my background tells me that people not only speak in a language, they also think in the language. And there's a bit of ambiguity that can take place, particularly when it refers to a particular context. So I'll give you an example, Mr. President. And this is that was a joke in my community, but it actually happened in a situation where there's a young man, we call him Magé. That's his nickname, Magé. He's now in the US. Used to be a very good athlete. And he found himself in a court. And a witness was giving evidence about him and was saying that Magé, the guy, when he did what he did, he ran up the road. So the guy said, Magé koui moute chimère. But the interpreter did not get the context. He didn't know that the guy's name was Magé. So he said, food run up the road. And of course, that created a bit of discussion, because the guy, food Magé in Creole, depending on the context, can be interpreted as food. That's what we know, but it's a nickname. So I think sometimes there are several other examples. I don't want to bring them into this house. They have, when people talk about things like cake, types of cake, there are so many different examples because of the nature of the Creole language, that someone who, even if is trained as an interpreter, must be competent and understand thoroughly the Creole language to be able to even get the training. So I just wanted to submit that, and I want to say a little bit of that in Creole. Monsieur Président, bon matin, nous avons passé un morceau de législation. Pour ça, faire assurer les gens en dedans de l'audience, et puis dire bagay, ça dit nous voulons faire assurer, c'est ça qui entre, c'est ça qui marche sur papier. Là, parce que les gens passent à parler langage anglais, les dire bagay, nous sommes mal compris. Nous voulons faire assurer l'année manière pour entraîner les gens, pour faire assurer tout le monde qui est dedans de l'audience. Là, ils parlent, ça dit c'est ça qui entre et puis matché à sous papier et puis ils ça servi pour représenter les gens. Bon, langage que la délai l'année saoudi peut-être manière dit en une façon, il y a différentes interprétations dans l'autre façon. Moi j'ai servi un exemple tout à l'heure. L'année monsieur de Ruisseau, non ici nous pas crier manger, ça c'est sous non. Il y a l'audience et puis les moun nan te ka dit manger couille monter chimère. Les moun nan qui ka expliquer ça idée, moun nan quoi c'était manger ou ka manger. Et puis ça pas te manière pour ça faire explication ça moun l'a dit. Alors, il est nécessaire, Monsieur le Président, pour nous passer morceau législation ça là, pour faire assurer que tout le monde qui a dit dans un cas l'audience, pardon, les yo dit au bagay, ça yo dit, c'est ça qui t'a pu enregistrer. Alors tout le monde qui a dit dans l'audience, même si vous passez à parler bien, même si vous passez à expliquer en anglais, ça veut dire qu'il doit bien enregistré et puis vous pouvez joindre justice. So again, Mr. President, I want to thank the independent senator for his submission. I think they were very valid, but I just want to emphasize that context is important. And while I agree that training is necessary, but the training, including training in offered for someone who is competent in the language or people who are competent in the language should be considered. So I thank you again, Honorable Senator, and I do hope that this piece of legislation achieves the objective for which it was intended.